Start. All right. We made it, right? We're on? Okay, cool. So wake up, Sunday Night Live. Um, it's I mean I didn't even know I forgot today we had a live because I just came back from Florida. It was great. But anyway, I wanted to tell you some some stuff that we need to go over before we start. So I hope everybody's there now. Let's see who's here. I got some people. Oh, piece of plastic in my mouth. Anyway, so wake up, everyone. Good morning, Asia, where I'm not. So for me, it's evening, and it's evening with all the other people here in the U.S. and even later in Europe. Good water. Water is amazing. You know, I just by the way, you all remember God, right? Okay, so God gave us one drink, only one. Was it lemonade? No. Was it Coke? No. Water. It's only one drink. Do you ever see animals drinking anything else? Nobody drinks anything else except water. And it's fundamentally what life is, right? If you're going to go to Mars and find out, or some other planet and find out there's life there, you're looking for water. Got to have water. Water is magic, magic, magic. And it's because of its molecular structure. It's just so perfect the way it forms this weakly bipolar um, milieu. I mean, the bonds between all the different H2O molecules. It's just phenomenal, you know. So, and we'll go over one day what water is, because when you understand what it is, it's really like you all. I don't know if you all might remember Ponce de Leon, right? Ponce de Leon. He was looking for the Fountain of Youth, and I think he was who was it? Anyway, one of the Spanish queens sent him out on a journey, you know, or at least financed his trip to see if to find the Fountain of Youth. And guess what? He never found it because he was looking for something other than, I don't know what he was looking for, a fountain. But what would a fountain be? Water. Water is the fountain of youth. It really is. And when you have only a water diet, if you do only a water diet, you'll see that. You'll get younger. You'll get clearer. You'll get more energy just from water, not eating. You don't eat, you just drink. It's called fasting. Anyway, it's the fountain of youth, absolute fountain of youth. And I've seen it. I wish I had the ability to do it for long periods. I just don't because I'm working too much. But anyway, it's fantastic. Water of youth, fountain of youth. So anyway, so the things is I wanted to let everyone know that I will be at the Beljanski Foundation Cancer Conference of 2023. It's October 13th to 15th in Jacksonville, Florida, and other people are going to be Chris Wark. You all know him, I'm sure. Of course, Sylvia Beljanski, Dr. Brian Clement, Nathan Crane, Veronique de Salinas. I've got to ask her how to pronounce her name. She was also at a conference I was just at this weekend, this week in Florida. So it was really great. A lot of amazing speakers. Had a wonderful time. Met several people, and it was very nice. Very nice. So I just got back today. Yeah, I'm okay. Got a haircut because I look too wild. Too wild. Anyway. The other thing is, remember, if a lot of these things get cut down because I don't know, I really want to tell the truth. I just have a hard time not speaking the truth. But if they I get kicked off anything, just remember, I'm at rumble.com/Dr. Thomas Lodi, Dr. Thomas Lodi. So rumble.com/Dr. Dr. Thomas Lodi, Dr. Thomas Lodi, right? And then of course Twitter, YouTube, Rumble, Instagram, TikTok, LinkedIn, they're all Dr. Thomas Lodi, and the website, Dr. Thomas Lodi. So you can stream this stuff there, and the only one that's different is Twitter. Twitter, it's not a Dr. Thomas Lodi, it's Dr. Thomas Lodi MD, because we had to put that in for some reason. But anyway, that's that. So just so you know, there's no reason to ever get lost. Okay. And Facebook, I don't know, they just didn't like me. They're coming up with ridiculous stuff. You know, I don't even. It doesn't matter. You know, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. They're doing me a favor. Okay. Anyway, so I'd like to answer some of your questions. You know, because you have a lot of questions this week. And let's see if we can pop through them. Because I know a lot of people feel get kind of bummed out because I don't get to their questions. So I want to make sure I can get to them. Okay, today. Right. Okay, so here we go. TikTok's weird. What does the average TikTok person do? Do you like you go on for like you go to something for like 3 seconds, 4 seconds. If it doesn't grab you, go on. You keep going. How does it work with TikTok? It's different. It seems different than the other ones. It reminds me of those, you know, those dating apps, right? Where you look at the person and you push the thing. That's what I think. The people that are into TikTok, that's what that. So that kind of, you got 3 seconds, man. Anyway, so let's answer some questions. Some good questions. Of course, they're all provocative. You know, all the questions you people ask are so provocative. Oh, but by the way, listen, this is very interesting. This came to me when I was eating kimchi. Really delicious, like organic, vegan kimchi. Amazing. Spicy. But as I was eating it, I realized it's full of probiotics. And I was talking to someone this weekend, and they were talking about how somebody that was on a lot of antibiotics, getting really, you know, just getting bombarded with antibiotics by the allopathic world, was just kind of survived eating sauerkraut. You know, and you know, all kimchi really is a sauerkraut, spicy sauerkraut, really. I mean, you know, some different spices, of course. But anyway, it's microorganisms. So here's my conclusion. My conclusion is, I don't know if I should put it on my card. I don't really have a card, but if I had a card, I'd put on my card that my pronoun is them. You have to call me them. You can't call me him. You have to call me them. Why them? In fact, believe it or not, you're all them. None of you are just one. You're them. Why are you them? You're them because, listen, if you don't have a heart, you can't live. If you don't have a liver, you can't live. If you don't have kidneys, you can't live. And if you don't have a microbiome, you can't live. So they're as important as any organ, the brain. I mean, without them, we're dead. So the question becomes, are they them or are they me, us? It's an us. So for me, my pronoun is us. And if you're talking about me, it's them, right? But see, that's the only way it makes sense. What other people are talking about doesn't make sense. I mean, I'd like to hear the rationale of why someone would like to be called them. Other than you've got all these microbiomes and you got all these organisms in there. Now imagine, we have our DNA, but with them we must have what? You know, each one of us has a DNA, and that DNA is every aspect of your physical being can be reproduced. You can take it out. That's what cloning is all about. All right. So now each of these microorganisms has their DNA, and their DNA is necessary for us to live. So anyway, so you get the point, right? You get the point. I don't need to belabor it. I'm sure you got the point. You guys are like way smart. So way smarter than me. I just know some details about this, but really, telling you. So let's jump right into it. So remember that we are all them. So can you talk about the BRCA1 and how to best support the body? This is from Carrie. Yeah, so this is on Instagram. So the thing about the BRCA, remember the BRCA genes, the BRCA, okay, is what it's called. And it just stands for breast cancer. That's what it stands for. And that's not what the gene was for. It had nothing to do with breast cancer. It's part of a system of repair of double-stranded DNA. So all of our, that's what the DNA is. It's double-stranded. When it breaks apart, you've got two single strands, yeah, and a little piece of it is an RNA of one. You know, that's all it is. So anyway, so as the division of cells is taking place, there's always breaks, there's always things like that, and for that reason, there's all kinds of enzyme systems that repair it, right? And this one system is particularly BRCA1, BRCA2. All they are is double-stranded repair mechanisms, enzyme systems, but they're one enzyme in a series of about 7 or 8 in that to repair the DNA. And so they're one enzyme. And if you get the BRCA1 trait from one of your parents, mother or father, you've still got the other one that you got from the parent that didn't have it. That's normal. That does repair the double-stranded. So it's not, it doesn't have to be a big deal. You'll have to really get this one, the one that wasn't damaged in any way. You'd have to get that one damaged now, in this lifetime. And now when they're both damaged, you're going to have trouble repairing double-stranded DNA, even though there are other mechanisms. And it still doesn't necessarily mean you're going to get it. It's not a, think about it. What is it? 5 to 10% of women with breast cancer only have BRCA, meaning 90% don't. 90 to 95% of women with breast cancer don't have BRCA. Don't have this defect. Words. It reminds me. Do you guys remember where they were? Was it a few years ago? They were calling. Remember when Brad Pitt and Angelina Jolie were? What do they call it? I don't know. A thing. I don't know. A phenomenon. They became Brangelina. Remember that? Brangelina. Anyway. So. And the reason I bring that up is because I wrote a paper about because she got everything taken out. She got her ovaries taken out. She got her uterus taken out, and her breast taken off because she was positive. Then she didn't have it. She hadn't had any chronically fermenting cells yet, but she had them taken out just as a prophylactic measure to make sure she didn't get it. What is the problem with that? The problem is that if you actually have that double-stranded DNA inability to repair. Or you have it's not quite as quick because you've got other mechanisms. It's not the only one. You've got other mechanisms, but it's not quite as quick. So you could result in a chronically fermenting cell. It's not just breast, ovary, and uterus. It's also pancreas, colon, and others that they're high risk for. Not high risk, but there's more of a chance for it to happen. Now, more chance. Remember, it's not a foregone conclusion if you have this. So what I'm trying to say to you is that if you have this, and you got it from one parent, and you're living healthy, and you didn't get the other chromosome from the other parent defective in any way, you're going to be okay. There's no difference. But what do you need to do? You need to do this. You need to live a life that is compatible with our biology, compatible with our biological requirements, compatible psychological. You got, in other words, you have to live a conscious life. And the reason we have to make it a conscious life, the reason I have to say that is because we grew up, we were all raised in cultures that are antagonistic to nature. I don't care what your culture is. Okay, so that doesn't matter. It's antagonistic to nature. Okay, because we have the very our the thing about humans is that we always have to change things. I'm going to give you an example that really bothers me a lot. I came to Phuket like 7 years ago. I was in Bangkok before that, but I came to Phuket about 6, 7 years ago, I guess 6. And it was really like fantastic, pristine everywhere, just beautiful. A few people here and there. I mean, a good number of people, but nothing. And then suddenly in the last uh, few years, couple years, they're building all these buildings. We're changing it. They're cutting down trees. It's like, why do humans do that? Why can't we just let it be? Right? Paul McCartney was telling us that. Why don't we just let it be? Just let it be. It's beautiful. Anyway, we don't. So that's the problem. Um, So the question to Carrie's question, it was a sincere question, how to best support the body. The best support the body is to do what we all should do. So if now, but let me finish that point with imagine this. Okay, here now think about this. Think about this. Listen carefully. Listen carefully. 90% of women who get breast cancer. But sorry for that. We're using the word cancer, you folks. Everyone knows. And if you're new to us, we don't use that word because it's Rockefeller. We use the reality of what they are, chronically fermenting cells. Okay, CFCs. Okay, so if a woman has breast CFCs, 90% of them don't have the BRCA defect. 10% do. My question is this: how do we know that those 10% have it because of the BRCA defect? They might have it because of all the other. We don't know. We just assume that because they have the BRCA defect, that the reason they have chronically fermenting cells is because of that. But it might not be. It might be from whatever other. Because remember, what are chronically fermenting cells? What is the whole process that is called, the Rockefellers have made everyone afraid of? What is that? Okay, it's a series of it's fundamentally one thing. It's fermenting glucose instead of bringing it through the mitochondria to get high yield of energy. So instead of getting a high yield, you're fermenting a yield, and therefore you need a lot more glucose. That's it. It's called the Warburg effect. That's what it is. And I know there was a study several months ago. Chris Wark talked about it, where they found out that through a very, very well done study, they found out that the because remember when we talk about the chronically fermenting cells, right? They exist in a milieu. It's called the microenvironment. So do all of our cells. Our liver lives in the microenvironment of the liver. So if I took a stem cell and I stuck it into the microenvironment of my liver, it would become a liver. If I took a stem cell and put it in the microenvironment of my heart, it would become a heart. That's what stem cells are. They're pluripotential. They can become many things. So anyway, in that milieu, which we call the microenvironment, or which is actually the interstitial fluid around the cells, right? So we have an interstitial fluid all throughout our body. In fact, it's even considered now to be like an organ because it's basically the same. Whatever it is, anywhere, it keeps equilibrating. But so the interstitial fluid is what bathes all cells, whether they're chronically fermenting cells or they're just normal cells. Okay, and the cell is always responding to that environment, and if there's too much estrogen, it starts to stop making it, or whatever, or there's too much glucose, it'll. So the cells are always responding to what's going on in their environment. That's how they know what to do, is by what's in their environment, and the cell membrane tells them that. Okay, not the DNA. Life is not driven by DNA. DNA is the parts department, period. DNA will provide a part. Remember, DNA is the library of potential responses that we have, that we were given to negotiate, to adapt, to respond as it unfolded. That's what DNA is. It's nothing else. It doesn't decide what to do. It has to be some, and you have to get a protein, a little, protein, an enzyme, come in and go to a specific spot, open it up, and now let's transcribe that little spot, right? And we'll produce this particular thing, this protein or this hormone, right? If it's in an ovary, it's going to produce a hormone, or the adrenal gland, it's going to produce aldosterone, or it's going to produce aldosterone, or it's going to produce the progesterone, or whatever. Okay, it gets opened up, and then when it makes enough, it closes it. But it doesn't. It's not. It's like just. And I think I used this analogy before. It reminds me of the queen ant or the queen bee. They just sit there and they're just pumping out new ones, right? But they don't. They're not. That's all they're doing. So that's what the DNA is like. So just keep that in mind. But now what they call the tumor microenvironment around there, it's because the chronically fermenting cells, they're fermenting, so they're producing lactic acid instead of going through the Krebs cycle, so where they just would produce carbon dioxide and water. So, but other than that, the chronically fermenting cells are producing lactic acids because they go through the fermentation process. So they have a low pH. So their environment, the tumor microenvironment, is different than the environment around our heart and liver and all that. It's very low pH, and it winds up with areas of low oxygen. So it's hypoxic. That's the medical term for low oxygen. Hypoxic and acidic. So when you've got that combination, that affects the other cells. Now, what are the other cells in there? You have the blood vessel cells called endothelial cells. You've got fibroblasts. Those are the little cells that we all have, and all of that make our connective tissue, right? That's how we make our connective tissue. That's how we make our everything. The padding. That's how our bodies are made. The fibroblasts do other things too, but they're pretty much in charge of the nest, in charge of making the nest. Okay. And then so you got fibroblasts in there, and then you got immune cells. You got macrophages, you got neutrophils, you've got dendritic cells, you've got T cells, all these kinds of things. Now, and the pH, right, and the acidity and the low oxygen. That environment, when a macrophage gets in there, like a macrophage is on its way, it's going to eat that chronically fermenting cell. It's going to eat it. It gets into the environment, and that environment changes it. And now it becomes a tumor-associated macrophage, and a tumor-associated fibroblast, and a tumor-associated neutrophil, a tumor-associated dendritic cells. Now they actually start doing activities that help the chronically fermenting cells live and grow. That's what happens. It's crazy, but that's what happens. So what I've started to do is focus my attention on that. How can we change that tumor microenvironment? Because there comes a time when you're working with someone who's got chronically fermenting problems going on, where you might hit a wall. You hit a wall, you're making progress, and then you stop. And you're not getting any further. And the reason you're not is because of that. That's the reason. There's not another reason. There's not another reason. It's because the immune system cannot do its job. So, anyway, how did I get to there from the BRCA question? But anyway, the BRCA question. The point is this: what you've got to do. Okay. Remember we said only 5 to 10% of the women who have chronically fermenting breast cells have BRCA defects. 90% don't. They have it. They don't. So how do we know that those 10% have the chronically fermenting cells because of the BRCA defect, or is it from the same reasons that the other women are having it? We don't know. Nobody knows. So anyway, if you have one and you've got it from one parent, What you want to do is make sure that the other one from the other parent doesn't get that. So what should you do? You should live a life that is going to satisfy all, and you're not going to overeat, okay? Because we know that the less you eat, the longer you live. Period. Of every species we've checked, from cockroaches to apes, doesn't matter, and humans. You eat less, you live longer. It's just one of the most. It's probably the most fundamental truism of all of anti-aging medicine, all of anti-aging therapies, right? This is the one. The less you eat, the longer you live. Why? Because eating is sets up all sorts of free radical damage, and you don't if you're eating a lot, like 3 times a day, and snacks. I can't imagine, but I can't imagine eating 3 times a day every day. I've done it, like, occasionally I'll wind up finding myself doing it, and I'm like, the day's ruined. The day's ruined. Because your body is so busy trying to digest and assimilate and then get rid of, and that's where the main part of your body is at. It's just not. That's where a lot of your energy is going to. And in order to do that, you've got to be in parasympathetic mode. Remember, everyone, we have an autonomic nervous system, right? We have a motor system, right? So I want to move my finger, I can do it. That's conscious, okay? But what's causing the peristalsis, in other words, the movement of the intestines? What's causing the heart? A normal heart, if you just left the heart alone and it had no nerve innervation, it would normally be like a baby, like about 120, inside the mama. But as the vagus nerve grows, right, which is the main component of the parasympathetic nervous system, as that grows, that puts a like its brake on our heart rate. So our heart rate goes down to 70, 60, 50, 80, whatever it is, but it's not around 120. So when you remove your vagal stimulation, which is your parasympathetic, okay, so we have 2 different systems of autonomic. Really means, I don't know why they call it autonomic. Why don't they call it automatic? It's automatic. It's happening without you knowing about it. Okay, so it's always doing, they're opening your blood vessels at different organs and closing them, and so that they can control the blood flow going in. There's like this grand intelligence that's running the body, and it's not us. You're not doing it. That you didn't decide to secrete a certain amount of insulin and a certain amount of pepsin and a certain amount of cholecystokinin, and you didn't we're not secreting things, we're not beating our heart, we're not doing any of this. It's all just happening. Anyway, the mechanism by which digestion and all these sorts of things happen is through it's called the autonomic or unconscious or nervous system. It's got 2 parts. One is where it just involves the muscles, not the organs, just the muscles, and it's to get you to fight or flight. You've all heard that. The other one is for your what they call vegetative functions. I don't know why they call it that. So weird. They're so weird. It's the vegetative functions, but that's what they call it. Anyway, in other words, it's allowing blood flow to shunt away from your muscles to the organ that needs it, which is the one that's digesting. So if you've just eaten, you need to basically rest and be parasympathetic and let it take place. So if you're eating all day and you're eating while you're working and stuff like that, you've got this working like that. It's going to take away your ability to focus, your ability to function in other levels. You certainly couldn't get up and engage in activities and stuff like that. So, but anyway, that's just on that level. But what's happening down there in our digestive apparatus? Our digestive apparatus is being overused, overburdened. And I'm just talking about frequency of eating. I'm not talking about any other aspect of eating, because there's 3 things that we think about with eating. We think about volume, frequency, and quality. Okay, so and if I were to say, if someone, I think we should just, if you're going to break some habits, you want to try to break some habits that are not healthy for you. Let's say you smoke, you drink, and I don't know, gamble, and you eat terrible food. So you can't don't because it's just a way out. It's a way of not doing it. If you say I'm going to do one thing at a time, I'm going to take it day by day. I'm going to do work on this first. You won't do it. You can't. As long as you keep that addictive machinery going, it's going to be going. And I don't care what you know. I don't care how you look at it. I'm just going to quit smoking, and I'll do everything else later. Yeah. What do we know? What do we see about people who just quit smoking? They wind up eating a lot. And they get overweight. Or drink, or no, they can't drink because once they drink, they have to smoke. So they can't do that. But anyway, so here's the thing: the best way to deal with it, just do them all at once. Because if you're going to go through any kind of like adaptation, right, which you might refer to as suffering, if you're going to go through any adaptation, do it all at once. Just get it done instead of you go through this one. Okay, I made it through that one. I'll do another one. You're making it really difficult. Just do it all. Do it all at once. Get it all done. But anyway, so how do we need to change our lives? We need to change our lives. We talk about this. We talk about this every week, and we'll probably talk about it forever. And if I ever meet you, we'll talk about it too. Well, the reason we're all sick is because of where we are. Look where you are. Wherever you are, I don't know where you are, but I'm telling you, it's not okay. I can't say that for sure. There might be somebody sitting on a beach somewhere. Yeah, I don't know. But okay, I'm talking about the way we live. The way we live is crazy, right? We live in boxes. We have electricity. We have magnetism going on. We've got EMF. We got 5G. We got 4G. It's crazy. We don't touch the ground. It's like no wonder we're not well. We're not well because we're not meeting our biological requirements. Our biological requirements are that we connect with the earth and that we breathe air. And that we have breezes going on us, right? And we look at trees, and we know that we take our brainwaves. Our brainwaves get immediately go into alpha if we're in the forest. We go into alpha as if we're meditating. It takes away all that angst. So if you're ever like freaked out, you're angry, just if you have anything near you, that you can just go outside and get there. Just get there. Get somewhere. Get to go to a park, run to a park, drive to a park, whatever, and just take your shoes off and just go there and just that's where we belong. That's where we're from. We're part of nature. I know we don't like that for some reason, right? Some people are offended if you use the word, if you're talking about animals and you include humans. You say all animals. We're not animals. Well, we're not plants and we're not minerals. Isn't that a game? Animal, mineral, vegetable. Yeah. Anyway, we pretty well, if you try to define an animal, whatever definition you come up with, I bet you that would pretty much define us too. Anyway, so what I'm saying to Brock a question, see, I take too long with each question. That's my problem. I got to stop it. Okay, I got to stop it. I got to start trying to move it on because it's not fair to all of you guys. So if you don't have BRCA, first of all, we don't know if BRCA caused it or not. Maybe it did, maybe it didn't. But anyway, so if you do, you don't want the second chromosome to get it, so you're going to live a life that's really healthy, that's not going to result in damage, right? Number one. Number two, if you don't have BRCA at all, what should you do? Same thing. So that really is nothing. It's just one of the allopathic, what's that word? Distractions. It's a distraction. The thing is, we all need to do the same thing. We all need. Me too. And I'll tell you, I do everything you folks do. If I'm working with you, if you're one of my students, and I'm working with you, and I have certain recommendations and teachings. I'm gonna do everything. The only thing I won't do is probably is IPT. But I could do it with the only reason I couldn't do it with quercetin and curcumin and things like that, because you can do it with botanical one. Anyway, so all right, so that's that question. So really, you can support it by just living a really healthy life and make sure that you don't get any other problems with your second one that you got from your other parent. And then, but don't worry, it's not genetics. Genetic is not, and that's not a gene for cancer, chronically fermenting cell. But that is, it's a defect in the double-stranded double-stranded DNA repair. Okay, it's not BRCA. They named it BRCA. You know, they're really insane. Okay. Okay, next one. How do you get rid of porokeratosis? Please, any advice? Okay, well, all right. First of all, this is another one of what they call diagnoses that the witches and warlocks in the House of Horrors, and some of them come out of the House of Horrors and they have offices and stuff too, and they have clinics, but they always, they check into the hospitals. It's kind of like they're like a beehive or something. It's a witch and warlock hive. Anyway, they like to get in there and throw all their curses at each other and talk. You hear them talk to each other in their words, all of their jargon. I don't know. It's really mad. It's madness. It's madness. So I'm just so glad. Thank you, God, for freeing me from those places. Anyway, so okay. It's not. There's not a thing called porokeratosis. Okay, because really what it is it's it happens usually on the skin, more often on the limbs, sometimes on the trunk and the face, and then sometimes in the urogenital area, but mostly on the hands, and it's like, it looks like a little rash. Looks like it usually can be round, and the edges are a little higher, and it can advance into a chronically fermenting cell. And since it's on the surface of the skin, which are squamous cells, so they call it squamous cell carcinoma. Oh my God! Wow, aren't they like? I mean, wow. I don't think so. Anyway, that's all it is. And so it doesn't tell you anything. So it can become that. It can become that. That can be one of the pathways. But remember, please remember, chronically fermenting is a pathway that cells will take. It's the only pathway they can take when they lose their ability to use oxygen. They have no choice. There's no other way to go. So that's what they do, because they need to keep making energy. Okay, so that's what they're doing. It's nothing else. You didn't catch it. It didn't come into you. It's there. That's what's happening. So, but anyway, so in the epidermis, the squamous cells are now. So I think they discovered it when did they discover it? Like, I mean, they didn't. There's no it. Okay, the first time they saw in a microscope that kind of histology. Remember histology, you all. Remember, histology is the medical term for microscopic anatomy. In other words, it's the anatomy of your tissue, right? That's different than gross anatomy. Gross anatomy looks at hearts, things that you can see, livers, ovaries, testes, brain, things, and then even nerves, olfactory nerves, and hypoglossal nerve. We have cranial nerve. We have nerves all over and stuff like that. So that's gross anatomy. But microscopic anatomy is where you got to use a microscope, and you look at the, and they call it histology. That's all it is. Okay. So the histology is that it had what do you call it? They call it coronoid lamellation. Okay, lamellation. Okay, big deal. Okay, that's just it's just using their medical jargon to come up with a way of describing it. Okay, and all it is it progresses as epidermal, epi on top of dermal, dermis. Okay, epidermis made of squamous cells are becoming a little. They're reacting to something. Okay, but how? Guess what? We have seen the same condition arise where things have not. Okay, so those have to do with exposure to ultraviolet B. Ultraviolet B can do that. To everyone? No. To who? People that don't have a healthy immune system. So it has nothing to do with the sun. It has to do with your ability to heal. Now, of course, you can stay in the sun until you're going to burn and be in pain. That's crazy. You're going to burn. It's an actual burn. But just to go out and exposure, we're supposed to get our whole body exposed for at least an hour a day. And then we'll make plenty of that wonderful hormone called vitamin D. It's really more of a hormone because it's made from cholesterol, just like progesterone, estrogen, and testosterone. It's made from that. So it's a steroid. It's a steroid hormone, and it's got multiple functions, and it's really amazing. But anyway, we need that exposure. So when we look at people who wind up getting chronically fermenting skin conditions, right? It's from again, they're not eating well, they're not healthy, and they're toxic, and they're not able to deal with. Because what happens if you get exposed to the sun? You get anything. You're exposed to any kind of thing that's going to cause acute inflammation. Well, if you keep getting exposed over and over, it's going to cause chronic inflammation. And we know that chronic inflammation eventually can turn into chronically fermenting cells. We see that. All right, we see that. That's the contribution of cigarette smoking to chronically fermenting lung cells. Because not everybody that smokes cigarettes gets chronically fermenting lung cells. Not everybody. In fact, the majority of people with chronically fermenting lung cells didn't smoke. It wasn't related to smoking. All right, so, but what is smoking? Again, smoking is chronic irritation causing chronic inflammation. Water. Wow. And then imagine if you're sipping 7 to 7, you got another bottle here, sipping your ascorbate. You're ascorbate because you're going to do that, because you know you got to do that, because you know you want to meet your physiological requirements of ascorbate, but you also want to be drinking. And drink when you're thirsty. So what? Okay, I know I go off. I'm sorry for segueing, but I have to change my name, Dr. Segway. Something happens between the age of 18 and about 22. Unless nowadays things have changed nowadays because people are getting overweight and obese like at childhood, but so they already switched. But anyway, so the before that, like when I was growing up, it was very, very rare for people to be obese, extremely rare. And up until the 80s, I think 90s, I don't know when it happened, but it gradually started happening. But anyway, like a person who's just living a life and all that, somewhere between 18 and 23 or 4, we no longer know that we're thirsty, and we think we're hungry. We start eating. We don't realize it. But anyway, if you can ever get back to understanding being aware of when you're thirsty and not hungry, and satisfy that, you'll be okay. But we immediately go to, because we're eating, remember, most of us eat out of appetite, which is born of the mind, not out of the physiology. We've lost touch with our physiology completely. We don't know, we don't understand it, we don't feel it. And you don't have to know intellectually the physiology, like someone like a physiologist or a doctor. You don't have to know it at that level. You know it as an intuitive level. You can know your body. You're living in your body. You feel it. You feel your heart beating, right? You feel things happening to your body. You know when you're full. You know when it hurts. You know when it feels good. So you can know. Just be aware of yourself. It's very, very important to be aware of your body, right? And and I know the reason I can tell you that I know that most people are not is because when they have a problem and they come and they're asking me to give some guidance, they can't even describe what they're experiencing. And you don't need to know medical terms to describe it. I try, as you've noticed, I try not to use them. You don't need to use them. Physiology is plumbing, electricity, and yeah, electromagnetic plumbing and stuff like that. That's what it is, and you can describe it like that. Okay. So, anyway, What is this? Who's that? What is this on? Do I have proof of what? I missed that. What's someone asking me? I didn't see that. I'm sorry. So I have proof of something from my. Um, what? Can I figure out what this person's asking me? Do you have proof of a PhD? I don't have a PhD. What are you talking about? Who are you? Lit? I can't. Litmore, New York City. New York City. Oh man, gosh. I spent many, many years in New York City. Okay. No, I don't have proof of PhD. No, I don't have one. So, okay. Anyway, that's a weird question. Um, okay. Anyway, eating healthy is going to, okay, obviously, nobody wants to hear where I segue, so I won't segue. I'll stick to it for a while. Okay, so porokeratosis. Okay, so basically, it's a unique histological response, histological microanatomy, right, of the skin. But it can happen from overuse. It can happen from wearing clothing too tight, chronically. It doesn't have to be from ultraviolet. In other words, it's kind of a response, just like chronically fermenting cells are an end. It's a response. It's a response. It's an adaptive response to stay alive by the body when things have been disturbed. And you can get to that point from this path, that path, this path, that path, all these different paths. All right. So there's not one way. So some people will say, well, how did I get this? Right. Well, the better question is how come not everybody doesn't have it? Because we're all exposed to pretty much the same things. So that's a more difficult question to ask. So I have put proof of, go on, come on, I don't get stuck with this. Whoever asked me that. So, all right. So now, but I'll tell you something. What works in these situations, with it, whether it's basal cell carcinoma, squamous cell carcinoma, and even melanoma, is we use a minimum of 6 to 8.75%, 9% peroxide, hydrogen peroxide. You got to use it fairly often. It works very good. So I would use a combination of that, ozonated olive oil, and even ozone. Bag the limb and ozonate it. And if you can deliver ozone directly to these spots, okay, just to help remove them. But on the other hand, remember they're coming from inside. So even if you shave them off, they're coming from inside. It's a systemic thing. We have to remember that with all chronically fermenting cells, regardless of where they originate, ovary, doesn't matter, breast, pancreas, doesn't matter. If you cut it off, something's coming from inside. That's why we have to change systemically. We have to change systemically. So, eating, cleansing, cleaning your colon, going to sleep early, doing lymphatic work, staying active, build up your strength, learn to meditate. These are all the things you need to do, right? And stop, and to be careful of what you're eating. Eat food. Don't eat only food, human food. All right. So, all right. So for that, this answers the porokeratosis thing. So what I would say is there are ways of getting rid of it. I don't know where you have it. If you have it a lot on your leg, and that's on your face and places like, people will get that reaction, specific reaction response in different areas. That really means your immune system is compromised. So we've got to build that up. What does it need? What does the immune system need? You got to clean your colon. You got to meditate. You've got to make sure you do some fasting, cleansing, and then make sure you're eating real foods to nourish yourself, and your immune system will be great. But and the other thing. So the three things I would use in a day for it, as and remember this is for squamous or anything. I would use the hydrogen peroxide, and then you let that do its thing, and then a while later you can use some ozonated olive oil, and then a while later, or if you or instead you could do some, if you can get any way to put direct ozone on it, that's great. And then at the end, paint it with Lugol's, 5% Lugol's. And meanwhile, change your inside, because if you don't change your inside, you're just picking the apples off the tree. You're going to get new apples. Okay? Now, okay, next question. What causes hard nipples in teenage boys? Well, yeah, and you're right. In teenage boys, it can happen up to 90% of them. I mean, it's quite often. And that's because women, girls, teenage girls can get that too, but they kind of expect different things going on because their breasts are growing anyway. But the boys aren't, and so they get, they get disturbed. Then they can be psychologically disturbed and all that. Like minimum 50% of boys are going to get either one breast gets large or both get large or the nipples get hard. And the reason this is happening is this. Men and women have estrogen. Men and women have the same hormones. We just have them in different ratios, proportions. Okay. There we go. What is this here? We're going to get rid of that one. Okay. We just have them in different ratios and different proportions. So, meaning we also have receptors for these hormones. Now, we've talked about this before, and it's always important to repeat these things. You remember me talking about postmenopausal women that have gone through menopause already, and how are they producing estrogen still? And it turns out that we can find higher estrogen concentrations in a postmenopausal woman's breast than her blood if we did a blood test or urine. And the reason is because the breast has some fat tissue in it, and in the fat tissue, in fat tissue is a higher concentration of an enzyme called aromatase, and aromatase changes testosterone into estradiol. Okay, so now in a premenopausal woman, she's making her estradiol from her ovaries. But after her ovaries are no longer producing estrogens, we're still getting androgens from the adrenal glands, and those are being converted peripherally, like in breast, or if you had a big belly, or anything like that, any place where there's going to be fat, you're going to get that. So what's happening? So it's a real easy. I mean, it's interesting. Estradiol and the testosterone are really, really close. Right? We're just talking about an enzyme waste. So it's easy for men to, if men have high testosterone levels, they're going to also have relatively high estrogen levels, estradiol levels, because they're going to be converting it. And if you look what happens to the average male as they get up. So if you took a 55-year-old man and a 55-year-old woman, the man may have higher estrogen levels. Why? The woman's gone through menopause, she's not making as much, and the man has developed a gut, that's pretty much standard for men. They develop a gut, so their testosterone is being converted into estradiol. So that's very interesting. So in fact, if you could block that block that conversion in the man, which you can use anastrozole or any other kind of aromatase inhibitor, his testosterone would go up. It's not that it went up, it's just that less is being converted into estrogen. Well, what's happening in a teenage boy? A teenage boy is getting testosterone all over the place. Teenage boys can have testosterone levels up to 1,000, 1,100. They can get really high. So that just means that more of it is, there's more getting converted to estradiol. And that's an estrogen effect. That's what it is. And understand this, Adrian, that it's going to go away. It's going to resolve itself, and it doesn't mean anything. I mean, on a rare occasion, it can have do something, but no. This is it. So it just means that I mean, they can be, the nipples can be hard, become hard and sensitive, and things like that. And so so one of the things you can do is if the boy is overweight, is to lose some weight, and you can lose weight by exercising more and eating in a you know I'd say if you're a growing boy, it depends, like if you're a 16-year-old, try to eat within an 8-hour window. That's a lot. I mean, that's a lot. You can eat a lot of food in 8 hours. And then you got 16 hours of not eating. Just try to do that. And stop eating, stop eating 4 hours before you go to sleep. And if you do that, you're going to decrease your fat, and you'll probably decrease the conversion of the testosterone to estradiol. Okay? But don't be worried about it. Okay, so now next question is, explain the correlation of ferritin and ferment. Okay, that's a good question. Now, I've mentioned to you before, because when you're working with your oncologist, which good luck, but try to find an integrative oncologist. Try to find someone who's has not obeyed the rules of being a doctor. And the rules of being a doctor is you stop thinking, doctor. I don't want you to think. I want you to follow the algorithm. Right? So work with a doctor who still has the ability to think. And but anyway, if you're working with them, one of the ways in which they all know this, I don't think they've thought about it a lot, but it turns out that if you have a really high ferritin level, and you don't know you have chronically fermenting cells, and you just do a blood test and you find out your ferritin is really high. That means your ferritin to iron ratio is way greater than 5:1. So you probably have chronically fermenting cells somewhere. So why is that? Ferritin is the storage form of iron. Okay, it's stored mostly as a ferric. Ferric means it's got a 3+. If you look at it, it's 3+. So that's ferric. Ferrous is the 2+. So now, what's very interesting is that that's how it's stored in the ferritin. And it turns out that, because, I mean, understand something about, I'm going to bring in vitamin C now, ascorbate. Ascorbate, which is an essential element for life in all forms except for the non-photosynthesizing prokaryotes, single-celled organisms. So, like, you all heard of plankton in the ocean, right? When there's two kinds, there's zooplankton and there's phytoplankton. The phytoplankton is what we think of as seaweed, and it's able to, it has the ability for photosynthesis, so it produces oxygen. And of course, the chloroplasts, the little organelles that produce oxygen, that engage in photosynthesis, also make ascorbate. So anyway, ascorbate. But anyway, so fish make it, amphibians make it, reptiles make it, all the mammals make it, except for a few of us, because we're supposed to be getting it in our diet. But we don't eat human food anymore, so we wind up having to get it in pills and take it and get IVs of it. Because we're not eating, we're not living. Again, remember the way we started this whole conversation. We're not eating we're not living in natural environment. We're not eating the food that we were designed to eat, and so our bodies are adapting. And these adaptations are the witches and warlocks are taking advantage of, and they call them diseases. I saw None. And I don't want to cause a big panic, but I saw like on several corners today while I was driving the car, diabetes. Yeah, I know you might, I don't believe it. Yeah. And there was also a few COVID there. So these diseases are like all over, and they want to get us. I mean, that's why they're there. And there was I even saw high blood pressures hanging out. There was a few of them just laughing. So you got to be careful of these diseases. They're going to get in you. Now, God forbid they get in. If they get in you, though, you know where to go, right? You know where to go, right? You look for the big cross, not the Christian cross. You look for the one like this, right? And you know it's a house of warlocks and witches. They have magic potions to help get rid of these diseases. I'm being facetious, but you know what's tragic about it? Is it's true. It's true. We believe that. And no matter how much you think you don't believe it, you do. I mean, I was fortunate. I didn't have to unlearn stuff. I had this blessed life where I grew up reading and learning things. Before, I mean, I never learned the wrong way, so I didn't have to unlearn it. Which is why I get shocked when I see people. What? You still don't know that? What? You still at what? Why isn't it okay? Why isn't it okay to eat an egg McMuffin for breakfast and a double cheese with Coca-Cola at lunch? Tell me why that's not okay. Man, billions of people around the world are doing it. So when I don't know how to answer those questions anymore because I can't believe it's still a question. So so ferritin. Now, why is the body storing ferritin? Because these chronically fermenting cells, remember, they need glucose and they also need other things extra so that they can grow rapidly, right? They're growing rapidly. Why do they choose to do fermentation rather than the other way? Because they still have some mitochondria, right? And if you give them a lot of oxygen, they still won't use the mitochondria. They're still going to go the other way around. They're going to use the mitochondria to produce different kinds of amino acids and different kinds of chemicals. They're going to use it for that, but they're not going to use it to make energy. Their preferred way of making energy is which is called the Warburg effect, which is called aerobic glycolysis. So anyway, one of the things they need is more iron, and iron is necessary for the rapid proliferation and growth. And so these chronically fermenting cells also have a lot of what are called transferrin receptors on them, more like 50. I think chronically fermenting breast cells have, I think, 15 or 20 times more of these kinds of these transferrin receptors. Now, transferrin is a protein. Again, most of these proteins are produced in the liver that transports iron. Iron can't be left alone. It's really like a double-edged sword. It has to be transported. Like a prisoner, you transport it. So the transferrin receptor picks it up, and then it does what it does. It's not just left alone. Believe me, it's escorted every step of the way. It's escorted, so the body, as an adaptive response to seeing that these chronically fermenting cells are happening, do certain things, the body as a whole. And one of them is to like sequester the iron, and they sequester it in what is called ferritin. So ferritin is the storage form of iron. It's how iron is stored, and it's stored in the ferric place. Now, another thing that most people probably are not aware of, and that is one of the main reasons for ascorbate and vitamin C we were talking about a moment ago, is it has to do very heavily with iron metabolism. All right. So ferric. Okay. So vitamin C, ascorbate being an electron donor. When you give an electron to a ferric, it becomes a ferrous, and the ferrous is the active one. The ferric is the ferrous is the active. And that's the one that'll produce, that's the one we use when we're giving you high dose vitamin C. Well, that's what we're relying on, is that activity, right? It turns the iron into ferrous, and when it does that, it releases peroxide and all kinds of stuff that can kill these chronically fermenting cells. But anyway, what else does? But just in normal physiology, what ascorbate does is, so you've got to have a lot of acid in your stomach, right? Not alkaline. You have to be acid. So you don't want to drink alkaline water, because that'll alkalinize your stomach, and then your stomach won't do the jobs it needs to do. It was designed to have a pH of 1.5 to 2. Okay. Unless you're eating, then it gets diluted, but then it should go back to that. And for many, many reasons, but one of the reasons is that it keeps the metals we eat, like iron, in a divalent, meaning just 2+ instead of a 3+. So it's not a ferric, it's a ferrous. That way we can absorb it. Where do we absorb it? In our duodenum. Where in our duodenum do we absorb it? In these little receptor cells, because everything's perfect. Remember, God made this. Okay, it's perfect. So in these things, they're called the divalent metal receptors, or transporters. The divalent metal transporters. Divalent means 2, so it's 2+, right? It picks up other 2+. It's not just the iron. So if you don't have enough acid in your stomach and you're eating spinach and kale and stuff like that, it's got ferric. That's how ferric is stored. It's like mellow. It's not going to hurt anything. And so it's going to go in your stomach, and you don't have enough acid to turn it into ferrous. So it's going to go into your duodenum. And if your duodenum doesn't have ascorbate, because that's what the other job that ascorbate do, ascorbate will get the rest of the ferrics and turn them into ferruses. And then the ascorbate also upregulates the divalent transporter system. It upregulates that. So it's very much involved in our normal physiology of iron and carbohydrates. So it's really important. It's an essential part of our iron and carbohydrate metabolism, because where does ascorbate come from in animals that can make it? The dog, the cat, the bear, the horse, the elephant. Where do they make it from? Glucose in the liver. Yeah. So anyway, so that's the relationship. That's why ferritin goes high. And so if you have a ferritin to iron ratio of 5 to 1 or more, then you have probably got chronically fermenting cells somewhere. Or ferritin goes up acutely because it's part of the whole acute phase reaction. Acute phase. So if there's a big deal going on, your body got stabbed, you got shot, you broke a leg, your ferritin's going to go up. Other things will go up too. But it should come down. So we're talking about over a period of time in a person who doesn't have some other deal going on. Then you can kind of use it as a marker. And so we use that too. We look at that. That's one of the things you can't look at tumor markers, because tumor markers aren't tumor markers. Ferritin and iron. So now, what's very, very interesting is this. When you're taking vitamin C, you're sipping 7 to 7, and then you could even take a few liposomes throughout the day if you want. But you're sipping the 7 to 7, and you're going to get IVs three times a week. That causes, it gets in, when that ascorbate gets into the ferric complex, it turns them into ferrous, and it releases the iron. And you can get your serum iron up where you want it to get, so you can make hemoglobin and things like that, get the ferric down, because you kind of, it's another one of the fantastic effects of vitamin C, ascorbate. So if you only had one therapy to do besides, eating right, all the things we talk about, eating right, keeping your colon clean, doing lymphatics, going there, being a nice guy, a nice girl, and all that. It'd be ascorbate, both oral and that. Now, of course, Dr. Frank Schallenberger says, no, I don't think so. I think it's ozone, but I'm sure Dr. Robert Rowan does too. These are two brilliant doctors. I have the highest respect for them. Frank Schallenberger and Robert Rowan. They're like ozone guru. You say namaste, Guru Schallenberger, namaste, Guru Rowan. Anyway, So that's what it is. Okay, so scorbate is going to help lower that ferritin. Just in case you wanted to know. I don't know. Anyway, so what's the next question? Does PEMF give cold tumors blood supply? All right, so it's a good question. This is from, same person. Dom Luke Candy. All right, so yeah, these are good questions. I'm telling you these are good questions because this person has obviously been studying or reading, which is great, right? If you've got chronically fermenting cells, don't rely on everybody else, right? Don't believe anybody. Anybody tells you anything, say, can you show me the paper? Can you show me how this is proved? Just like that guy earlier asked me to prove I was a PhD. Well, I can't prove that, and I also can't prove that I have an MBA, and I can't prove that. What else? No, I can't prove that I'm an accountant. Anyway, that was weird. Why would someone ask me what to prove it? I have an MD. Anyway, I know what he's talking about. I know what he's talking about, or she, or whatever it was. Them, I don't know. And it was psychology. Oh, you're a psychologist, huh? Oh, did you have a PhD in psychology? Can you prove it? That must be what it was, right? Got them really mad, upset. They were upset about that. Anyway, I got my master's in psychology and then PhD, working on the PhD. Did all the work except, you got to have like if anyone's done that kind of work, you have to have somebody you're working with, a professor that's just leading you through the whole thing. Anyway, we completely disagreed on what we were finding and seeing, and so I just said okay. So we finally just said okay because we couldn't come to terms, and I was done. So I just left with a master's. But I did all the clinical work and I did all that stuff. So I still practiced as a clinical psychologist, and I worked at a 240-bed facility where there were psychiatric facility, like people with different kinds of problems. I did that for a few years and then realized I just didn't know enough. So that's why I went to medical school. I didn't go to medical school to be a doctor. I don't care about being a doctor. I went to medical school to learn about the body and pharmacology and what it's doing to it and all that sort of thing. So that's why I went to round out my vision so that I could really help. You got to know it all. You got to know mind, body, and spirit. You got to know it. Because we're not cars. So anyway, so they're good question. PEMF, pulsed electromagnetic frequencies. You guys all know about that. You've heard of it. You probably have used it. There are different kinds. They're all different kinds. I met a guy this weekend who was quite knowledgeable about it. Was very impressed, very knowledgeable about it. We use it, and what it is, pulsed electromagnetic frequencies is it's the pulsing that stimulates physiological functioning. So it'll increase several things. Now, when you're mentioning okay, because it's electromagnetic. So basically, if you've got, you all understand the idea of what electromagnetism is, right? It's one thing, even though it's two words, and they're perpendicular to each other. So if you've got an electrical current going this way, you've got a magnetic at 90 degrees around it. If you've got a bunch of magnets, you'll produce an electric field. One does not exist without the other. Yeah, I'm sorry. I got these two cameras, so I guess the further I step back. So now, I think there might be confusion on the word cold tumor blood supply. It's not the blood supply. The cold tumor and hot tumor has nothing to do with blood supply. It has to do with, because we're talking about the um, this term was developed and came out of the whole idea of working with what they call checkpoint inhibitors. So checkpoint inhibitors are chronically fermenting cells they attach themselves to T cells, and they block that T cell from, destroying the tumor. And so this is one of the things that chronically fermenting cells do. Pretty clever. So anyway, the checkpoint inhibitors will go on, and it's a drug. You use it, it'll block that spot, so the chronically fermenting cell can't do it, and that frees up the T cell to go do it. So the hot tumor is the one that is infiltrated already with T cells. So if you go in and you just unblock it, they'll gobble it up, and you'll have a good effect. A cold tumor is one that doesn't have the T cells. So even if you use the PD inhibitors or whatever, Keytruda, there's a lot of them. Even if you use it, they're not there, so they can't do the job, right? So that's the thing. So how do you convert them from cold to hot? Well, PEMF does that. PEMF does that to some degree. Ivermectin does it really, really well. PEMF does that. PEMF does so many things. It can actually, by itself, destroy tumors. But you got to have a strong one. And there are ones, and they've got to get up to certain Gauss. Gauss is a measure of it's a unit of measure for magnetism, and you've got to get up to a certain Gauss, and you have to know how to do it. But so there's a lot of them. So you have to work with someone. But yes, you could increase blood supply. You could increase. It does have an immune effect, and I don't know enough about this subject to answer it perfectly. So that's a good question. And now, what you did to me, Dome, Luke, Andy, Liv, you gave me a new subject to study. I got to study that now. I got to learn that more. Thank you for asking. So we will find it out. But they're great. The thing is, you got, and I meant to say that this weekend when I was giving a lecture. So I hope there's a lot. I hope there's some people from the lecture. How many people are there? Come on, go away. There you go. Okay. Here's what I've noticed, and it's kind of, please, everybody listen carefully to this. This is an important one, okay? This is really important. I talk to people every day, and they come in and they give me a list of everything they're taking. And it's all fantastic. It's usually fantastic. But here's what we got to look at. Where are you getting it from? What is the source? You can't just think, because you can't trust people. Everybody is, and we found it out, man. We found it out with the great hoax of 2020, right? What did we find out? We found out that even scientists, even doctors who knew what was going on, went along with it. And we see that in other areas too. So, I mean, the whole idea of sales, what is sales all about? Sales is convincing someone to purchase something. And a salesman will do whatever it's required. And if that is requiring stretching the truth or lying, anyway, this is why we have to be well informed. But anyway, if you look at this stuff, read about it. Become a reader, become a knower of this thing, your body, and all this. But if a substance looks really good, ask me, and I'll tell you. But if a substance looks good, or I say, yeah, that's great. So you go to a place to buy it. You got to go to the manufacturer and say, listen, I need to know two things. Where do you get your ingredients? Where do you get the ingredients? What are they? And are they organic? Number one. In your processing to make this, do you use heat or you do it with, is it cold processed? Okay, because heat usually destroys things. So anyway, if you can answer those questions, then you can feel comfortable. But they've got to be able to prove it to you. You know, and you know, the thing is, you know, if we lived in a world where we could believe each other and we knew there weren't charlatans out there, it'd be so much more wonderful. But anyway. Okay, I got an ultrasound of this is another question from Bordeaux. An ultrasound of an enlarged lymph node in my neck, 2 centimeters, benign. What to do? Okay, so if you're telling me it's benign, that means they did a biopsy. And according to the histology, they saw no evidence of what pathologists call malignancy, which is a histological diagnosis. It's a histological diagnosis, okay? And so what to do? Well, not knowing anything else about you, I don't know. I can't answer that completely because I don't know anything else about you, what's going on in your life. However, the job of the lymph node is to receive the drainage of a certain tissue, right? So we have lymph nodes all over our body and lymphatic vessels that are draining tissues. And those lymphatic vessels drain 10%, 90% go to the veins, 10% go to the lymphatics. The lymphatics goes through the lymph node. The lymph node evaluates it, right? How's it evaluated? Because it's got sitting in there, it's got T cells, it's got macrophages, it's got all kinds of immune cells that are in there that are evaluating it, right? And they've got all these receptors and they can figure out. And if there's anything not cool about it, they're going to take care of it, eliminate it, and send the message out that this is around to all the other immune cells in the body. They communicate through chemicals called cytokines and interleukins and things like that, and chemokines. But you know, they just different names for the same kind of. So anyway, that's what the job is. So your lymph node's doing something, right? I don't know. Did you have a lymphoma or it's 2 centimeters is kind of big, but and it's benign. How long have you had it? Is it the only place? Have you had it before? Non-tender. You don't have a cold. You know anything in your neck. You know, usually like if you have a cold or something, you might get enlarged lymph nodes. Just like if you've got either some infection on your leg or vaginal or penile or scrotal infection, you can get enlarged lymph nodes in your, right between where your leg meets your pelvis. It's called your inguinal area. You get lymph nodes in there. Those can get enlarged. So so they're regional in different regions of the body. There are lymph nodes, and they're doing a job. So that lymph node there is doing something. You got to find out what it's doing. And so the best thing to do, what I would do if I had something like that, is I would do a cleanse. Because whatever it is dealing with something that is causing it to work. You know, they don't get enlarged unless they're like overworking. So I would do a good, go on a good juice cleanse. Do a good green juice cleanse. Green juice cleanse. Do it about, go get a couple colonics. Go to bed early. Get in, take your melatonin, 8 o'clock, get in bed about 8:30 and be asleep by 9. Stop eating at 5. Here's the thing. When someone asks me, what should I do? I'm going to be real specific like that. Sometimes I assume you already know what I would say in that area. But most people are not going to do it. If I said, I want you to take this pill, I want you to go to, you run all over the world. Okay. But what? Clean up my life? All I was talking about my lymph node, I want to have to go to bed early. So anyway, I know, I get it. I'm human too. Remember, I was born on the planet Earth, and I grew up totally like you all. Okay, complicated. Breast, how can we treat it? Complicated cyst in breast. Okay, so fibrocystic breasts can sometimes be the pathway to developing chronically fermenting cells, and not always, but they can also be painful. Chronically, women that have fibrocystic conditions going on, they usually get bigger, prior to, because they're responsive to estrogen. So prior to their menses, it's going to get bigger and painful, and then it's less later. But it can be so painful that a woman like that can't hug someone. Can't hug their husband or their boyfriend, or their mom and dad, because it hurts. Their breasts hurt. So it can get that bad because they're painful. That's why it blows my mind that some man somewhere came up with the idea of a mammogram. What the heck, man? What the heck? You notice they didn't come up with that idea to check out your testicles. Listen, we're going to see if your testicles are okay. We're going to squash them and then irradiate them and taking a picture of them. I wonder why they didn't come up with that. That's a weird thing there. But anyway, so anyway, V, your name is V, and I hope you're listening. So usually, fibrocystic breast problems have two main causes. One is estrogen dominance in your hormones. So you might not be. I don't know how your cycle is, and if you're if you have a regular cycle or not, and we don't know if you're producing progesterone, and so enough progesterone, which means we don't know if you're ovulating and you estrogen dominant. I don't know that. So that we need to straighten out. But the other one is iodine. Now, taking iodine, putting iodine on your breast, a couple drops of the Lugol's on there. But and this is an old way of dealing with this. It's real old. It goes back to what, the 40s? Was it the 40s or the 30s? Before the drug companies had really taken over, allopaths knew a lot more than they know now. But way back then, they found out that painting the walls of the vagina would 100% of the time fix fibrocystic breasts, but only in women who still had ovaries. So if you had an operation already and you lost your ovaries, it wouldn't work. And closer to the cervix, right? So women know this, men might not, but most men should, because I have a feeling they've been doing their, informal examinations of women. Yeah, informal, but nonetheless, frequently, probably. So you all know that at the back of the vagina is the cervix, which is the mouth or the opening of the uterus. All right, so it turns out, so getting something to paint the inside of the vaginal wall close to the uterus every day with Lugol. I'm sorry, I didn't say Lugol solution, 5%. Okay, and that's going to really help a lot. Do it every day. Not every day. Do it like 5 days a week. And you got to, whenever you're using a lot of iodine, you got to always monitor your thyroid function, and we've talked about that before. Everyone knows how to do that by now, right? So, okay, isn't it funny that this comes up every another good question. Isn't it funny? Not funny, but isn't it strange that someone comes up every week? We get the same question, and I guess I haven't made it clear enough. The question here is by Brissa, protocol to get rid of parasites, tapeworm, roundworm, etc. Also, lab test confirms SIBO. All right. Well, they kind of go together. Okay, so one of the things that parasites do is They're not easy to find. They don't hang out. They're embedded deep in the wall. They'll lay anything from 20 to 2,000 eggs a day. They lay a lot of eggs. And so even if you kill all the adults, in a week or two, you're going to have all the eggs hatching. By the time you kill them, they've already laid eggs. So you got to have cycles: 3 weeks on, 3 weeks, 1 week off, 3 weeks, or 4 weeks on, 1 week off, 4 weeks on, 1 week off. And it might take up to a year. You don't know how long. You don't know how infested you are, but we're all infested. And that's just the worms. That's not including the protozoa, the single cell organisms like Giardia, like toxoplasmosis, like entamoeba, amoeba. You've heard of amoebic dysentery, really tough dysentery. And then, and then the women and men get that. The men don't know they get it. The woman knows because she smells like fish. All right. What's that called again? Vaginalis, something vaginalis. My mind's not working. But we also used to call it. Yeah. Anyway, it's a protozoa, right? And basically, so that for that you need tinidazole or metronidazole or metronidazole, and also Alinea, which is nitazoxanide. Those are really good for protozoas. You want to get rid of protozoas. I blocked you, and that was fun. Huh? Trichomonas, that's it, Trichomonas. Trichomonas vaginalis. By the way, interesting, we're finding Trichomonas vaginalis in cavitations in the jaw, along with entamoeba. You blocked me? It was me? No. Why would someone block me? Didn't block me. Okay. Now, what do you say? Well, here you. Oh, wait, okay, real quick. I'm sorry. I'm using castor oil nightly with heat because of what she said. Oh, I don't know who she is. Okay, I'm not in there. Okay, I'm glad you guys all talk to each other. It's really cool. Yeah. All right, cool. How'd you get rid of that? Oh, wow. Okay. Anyway, let's get back to where we were. Protocol. So you want to take several anti-helminthics. Helminth is the stupid medical word for worm. I don't know why they can't just say worm. It's called a helminth. And there's flatworms and there's roundworms and hookworms. So anyway, probably the worm that likes humans, that lives in humans the most is the roundworm. There's several varieties of the roundworms. And then there's the flatworm, hookworm, and stuff like that. Some of these worms can go through your leg, your foot, if you're in an area where they have that, like in the jungle and forest or something. Not forest, jungle, the mud. They go right through your skin and go right up into your lungs, and then you cough them out and swallow them. They go in your stomach and then they hatch. It's bizarre. You can get them through eating contaminated food, right? And you can get them through a vector. A vector is a mosquito or fish, a snail, something. So a mosquito carries the malarial parasite, right? Mosquito, and then the tick carries, limes, which is not a parasite, but it is. It's an intracellular organism. It's a spirochete. It's a weird type of bacteria. Lyme is just like syphilis. They're both spirochetes. They both, and it's interesting because syphilis used to be called the great imitator, and now Lyme's is the great imitator. So, anyway. But why Lyme's has been weaponized? We all know that. So anyway, the reason I said your SIBO is also related to it is because when we have parasites, the parasites disturb on purpose our microbiome to fit their needs, and so we'll have less of some healthy ones and not enough of less healthy ones and too much of ones that are not healthy, and we get a disturbed, or what's called a dysbiosis. Okay. I got that haircut today. I'm really mad. This Russian guy I said nothing on the back, just the sides. He did the opposite. Anyway, so you want to take like 3 or 4 of these antihelminthics 3 times a day, and also a couple of protozoa like the amoeba and stuff, right? And I've said it before, niclosamide 500 3 times a day. Now this is not for everybody, but this is a general. Praziquantel 600 milligrams 3 times a day. Mebendazole 500 milligrams 3 times a day, or you can take less. Fenbendazole, I like both of them. Fenbendazole 222 milligrams 3 times a day. See, is that all? Yeah, that's really good for the worms. And then I would take tinidazole, 100 milligrams twice a day, and linea. So do that, and then on the week off, take some antifungals, because remember, you're going to have more fungi show up when there's things dying, because the job of the fungus on planet Earth is to recycle dead matter. So they're not part of the food chain at all. They just recycle dead matter. Without them, it'd be like not having, it's like the garbage. The people that pick up the trash went on strike in New York City, Chicago, San Francisco, Detroit. Right. So funguses are really good for that. That's what their job is. So in other words, so then on that week off, take antifungals, like take diflucan 100 milligrams, 100 milligrams, 2-3 times a day. Take nystatin 500,000 units. You can either drink it or get it in little capsules and take it. And you can get itraconazole. Itraconazole is kind of like fluconazole. But itraconazole works better for some things. Like, for example, people that get tinea versicolor. I don't know if you ever had like white spots. You have white spots here. And you put on an antifungal, and it doesn't go away, and that's because they live in your hair. So you got to get a shampoo that has itraconazole is good. This is a good question for you guys. Is it dangerous for someone who has recovered from chronically fermenting cells, CFC, to be intimate with an injected person due to shedding? And the sad truth is, yes, it's dangerous. And we don't know what's going on with that. But we don't know what is shedding. There's so much we don't know. There's conflicting information about that. So we really don't know what it is, but we do know. And we're seeing more and more, unfortunately, in the blood of people who have not been injected, similar kinds of changes in the blood that we see with people who have been injected. And so lots of us are getting exposed one way or another. And one sure way is to be intimate with somebody who is who's been injected. It's just, tragic, and it's tragic. And I've had so many students I work with that are telling me that, and it's mostly women, tell me their husband did it and they didn't. It's like, wow. That's really tough, because what are you going to do as a wife? What are you going to do? One second, I got. Yay. Okay, sorry. I've gotten a bigger bottle. Yeah, it's a tragedy. It's a tragedy because, you know, sure that the husband can wear or boyfriend can wear a condom, but you're still going to kiss, so, and we don't know where the shedding's going to be. We just don't know enough about it. It's really not cool. And everybody, uh, you're braced, right? Everybody's braced. Everybody's informed. Everybody knows something's coming. Remember that song by, it was in West Side Story? Cool song. But he was talking about something else, something good. But something big is coming, and it's going to involve the same kind of stuff and worse. So get ready, just get ready. And I don't. What does that mean? Well, I got a feeling based on everything I've been reading and discussing with people who happen to know. Got a feeling that Europe and North America are not the place to be. I got to be cool, so I won't say anything else. But and I know you're gonna say, "Well, okay, great. I can't do that. I got that." And my answer is, you know what? If we don't do it, what? I mean, you gotta know what's coming. Okay, excuse me. So anyway, that's that. I don't know what to say about that. That's terrible. Now, if you just met somebody and you really like them, the I guess that's not as bad as being married. How can you say that? It's all bad? Whoever you are experiencing something, it's 100% and it's bad, right? You really, really love somebody, so, or whatever. Even if you're just attracted, and you have to love them, maybe. It's just a shame we can't have normal human relationships anymore. And because I don't know what's in there, I have differing reports. Some people say there's only uh, synthetic biology, nanotechnology, and there's no mRNA and there's no spike protein, and other people say there is mRNA. So, but everybody does agree that there's graphene oxide, so we know that's in there, which is, you know, uh, receives and sends messages, um, self-assembling. Yeah. So I don't know what today. I don't know what to say. It's going to get to the point. Really, it's going to be very bizarre. It's going to get to the point where the only way that people can have sexual sex at all is masturbation. It's really, I don't know. That's just one of the major tragedies we're going through as a human race. Okay, lump. If a lump in the breast, what do you recommend instead of mammogram, and what are the first steps? Okay, so you must be new then. Yeah, for sure. I would never recommend anything but a mammogram, but ultrasound and thermography are really, that's a combination that is really good, really good. And then there's something else you want to do too. This is zealous, right? Zealous. The other thing that you want to do is this. You want to change your life so much that you really almost don't need to get these things like mammograms or ultrasounds and colonoscopies and stuff. Because here's the thing. Here's the thing. What are you going to do if you find something? What are you going to do if you find something on colonoscopy? What are you going to do if you find something on a thermogram or ultrasound? What are you going to do? You got to think. What are you going to do? You're certainly not going to get high dose chemo. You're going to go through a whole bunch of stuff with vitamin C and ozone but more importantly, fundamentally, what you've got to do is change your life. You got to change your life. And so do that now. just do that now, so that you almost don't have to get these things, because you do, because we live in a toxic world. So you still got to do it, but just change your life already, because that's the thing to do. Change. You know what? It's not like it's a bad. It's not like we're saying do something that's going to cause you pain. You're going to feel better, and instead of having side effects, you're going to have side benefits. You're going to have, your memory's going to improve. You're going to have clarity. You're going to have energy. You're going to feel better about things. You're going to be in a better mood. You're going to be less judgmental. You're going to be more forgiving. You're going to be better at whatever you do, whoever you are, whatever. If you're a mom, if you're a dad, if you're a friend, if you're a daughter, if you're a parent, anything you do, a teacher, a doctor, a lawyer, you'll be better at it. So that's the benefit. It's worth it. So don't even think you're doing it because you don't want these good chronically fermenting cells. You're doing it because you want to be in a condition called health. And here's the thing: if you're in a condition called health, not only do you not have chronically fermenting cells, you don't have arthritis, you don't have all these things that are this. It's all the same thing. So just let's do that. That's the message for the day, the month, the year, the century, the millennium, and forever. That's the message. How is your back now, Doc? Maybe you should do some gentle stretches. Best of luck. Thank you. My back seems to be better. So it happens. I didn't pick up anything. So thank you. Should one take iodine for papillary carcinoma? There are mixed notions on this. No. Yes, absolutely. Yes, you should take it. But we, Renew Quebec. Renew's K. Yeah. Yes, you need it, because now you got this thyroid thing. What you got to do first of all is you've got to find a biological dentist. And I think I put on our website a list of the ones I knew of that I could find. I got it from a biological dentist that I work with, that I trust with everything. She's amazing. And I'm telling you, they call it biological dentistry, but it's I don't, the mouth did not leave the body, in spite of the fact we got two professions. Mouth never left body, so it's still part of it. It's an integral part. Remember, the mouth is the beginning. Your lips are the beginning, and the end, your anus. Okay, that's where they begin. So don't. But that's the beginning and the end. So that's all your gastrointestinal tract. That's all of it. So it matters what are the bacteria and the archaea and what are the microorganisms living in your mouth, right? The condition of your teeth, your jaws. Do you have cavitations? So you've got to know that, and especially I'm telling you this for this lady who's asking me about the papillary carcinoma, is because the thyroid and the breast are on the same meridian. All right, so you might have something going on there. So you got to get that checked. You got to go to biological dentist. The minimum they'll do is a cone beam CT. There's another thing coming out now called the cavita. I don't think it's out yet. It's out in Europe, but it's not out here. The old one was called the cavita. And basically what they are is ways of doing ultrasounds of the jaw, and they can see. So you do that combined with a cone beam. And then they also do other things. They do acupuncture meridian. They do muscle testing. Why do you have to do those things? You have to do those things because our Western methods of detecting situations, problems, are very gross. They are not subtle. They don't get, there's a lot they don't get. They don't see. They don't see things until they're in trouble, big trouble. Like if something's finally showing up in your blood, it's because it's been there a long, because why? Because the body is always balancing and being homeostatic, right? So it's not going to show up in your blood because it's not allowing it. But when you don't realize it, that your body's going through all the kind of, but you do a blood test called a CRP or a galactin-3, and you'll say, oh wow, yeah, why is that high? That's why it's high, because you're dealing with something that you don't know about. But no, you got to do that. You got to get that, take that. And you got to go to the right kind of person. So I don't know where you live, but it's on my website, and drlodi.com. And in fact, can you guys answer? I want to see if I want to ask something. Would it be helpful if we had a like a I guess even one of these lives, but we won't have pre questions that you sent in first. But what we're going to do, and I'll bring on Dr. Abramian, who's a biological dentist, second to none. And so I'll talk to her a little bit. I'll have her, and I'll ask her some questions and stuff, and then you can ask her questions, and me. Would that be cool? I mean, would that anybody? Do you guys be into that, or can I say a yes or no? And you do know how important. You do know how important about the dental. I mean, I can't even tell you how important it is. Okay, we're getting some yeses. Okay. Beautiful. Okay. Yeah, I got enough yeses. Good. Thank you, guys. Thank you for doing that. Nothing happened here. What's come on, Instagram, wake up. Where are you guys? Or is it my phone? Her too. Oh, look at, I see all your questions. You're talking to each other. Don't. Always think happens. Right. Oh, you guys, ooh, bunch of wise people here. You guys blow me away. Yeah, absolutely. Okay, good. So she's amazing. She's amazing. She's more than amazing. You'll see what I mean. So let me see if I can do that, and I'll put it out on our stuff to tell you that it's either going to be next Sunday or the Sunday after. Okay, is that cool? And I just want her because she's I don't I'm not I studied in the school that didn't think the mouth was part of the body. But this person is very exceptional because she, before she went to dental school, was in medical school. She went to medical school, then dental school, did her residency there, fixing jaws and teeth, and people that had trauma, and came to the U.S., went to dental school again, and then studied all this other stuff. And so, I mean, but everything. So she'll do it all. So anyway, okay, good. We'll do that because I want you all to know how important it is. But that's what and that's for this woman with the papillary carcinoma of the thyroid. Okay, so regardless of whether you have this happening, the papillary or follicular or even medullary or any, there's all kinds, anaplastic. Well, it doesn't matter. Or you don't have it, you do have an iodine deficiency. We all do, unless you are, your name is Okamura and you live in a little village in Nihon, Japan, and you're eating a typical traditional diet. You're not eating the other stuff. You're going to you'll have plenty of iodine. But other than that, you're not going to have enough. And which means your thyroid has been having trouble for a long time. It's finally manifested as this, but it's been having trouble for a long time. And some people get what they call Graves, and some other people get what they call Hashimoto's, but they're all the same thing. They're all just the body trying to adapt to the fact that it doesn't have iodine, and it's having to use fluoride, chloride, or bromide, and it doesn't want working, right? And thyroid is pretty important because it's kind of our thermostat for our energy. So you need to be taking it. So if there's any mixed notions on it, it's just because they don't know. They don't know. They don't know. They don't learn it. They don't study it, and they don't care. And when you say mixed notions, you're talking about doctors. Okay, next question. On a water fast, can we still drink ascorbic acid? No, the sodium ascorbate, not ascorbic acid. Sodium ascorbate in a liter. Yes, you can. Yes, you can. Okay, now we're going to go down to, I don't want to neglect oh my, it's so late. Okay. Here's a question here. I had my first, this is an email from Jen. I had my first mammogram at 4. They found microcalcification, grade 4, no tumor, recommended biopsy. Apparently, they could not do a biopsy because it was too close to this. So now they want to do an excisional biopsy. I don't think I need it. I'm just not sure if I have chronically fermenting cells or not. Do you think I need to do the biopsy? Could it potentially spread the stem cells? If I don't do it, what should I do to prevent chronically fermenting cells? I have no medical diagnosis and I am on no meds. I have no risk factors and no chronically fermenting cells on either side of my family. You, Jen, are in a perfect condition. You don't want a diagnosis. Diagnoses are madness. They're sorcery. They tell you that you are something that you're not. So you don't ever want a diagnosis for anything. There's no such thing. If anything is going wrong with your body, it's because it's out of balance. It's lost. It's not in balance. If all your systems are in balance, you're in health. You're having all your biological needs met, your psychological needs met, and your spiritual needs met. You're in health. And if those are not being met, you're going to have an adaptive response that's going to cause problems. That's what it is. You don't need a name, because then you think you think whatever you think that name means is that's what you think you have, and you're stuck. You'll never get rid of it ever. So you don't know how lucky you are. They couldn't do it. They couldn't do it. I was going to read. They couldn't do it because I wouldn't let them. But you don't ever let anybody take a piece of your body to tell you what it is. Whatever's going on in your body is going on because you're out of balance, or you're malnourished, or which is out of balance. Your hormones are out of balance. You've got an incredibly stressful relationship with somebody, or several people, or there's multiple. You've got heavy metals. There's so many things that can be happening, and you just got to correct them all. Get rid of the garbage. Do cleansing, fasting, colonics, blah 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 blah. So that's what you need to do. Don't let anybody put it in there, because you got to understand something. If you don't have a diagnosis, they don't know what to do. They can't stick you in their sales algorithm. If they can't stick you in their sales algorithm, they freak out. So they're gonna call you. They're gonna hire a company to call you every hour on the hour or something. They're gonna call you and hound you because they want you to come in. They want to grab a piece of it, and then they'll get a description of the microscopic anatomy, and that description has a certain terminology. It's a word, and they can stick it, or a couple words, and they'll stick it in their sales algorithm, and they can tell you what to do. They have to get a diagnosis. It's the last thing in the world you want. You don't have one. All you have is what? A mammogram found microcalcifications. Big deal. First of all, let me just tell everybody something. The last thing that happens, well, not always, it may not, you don't get to it, but one of the last things that happens in a cell that's really working, or a few cells that are really working to adapt and stay alive in its bad situation. One of the things that happens is when they're in a bad situations, the biochemistry changes such that it's getting acidic. And what is one of the ways our body alkalinizes to certain tissue? It's with calcium. And so calcium is leached out of the bone, and it's grabbed out of the blood, and it goes there. And it's kind of the last one in. There was a great book a good book you should all read, called Death by Calcium. And basically it's the cellular death. It's like the last thing in to try and alkalinize, and it just. But if you look at an older person versus a younger person, you do an X-ray on them, you're going to see on the older person, even in their blood vessels, you're going to see little white spots on the X-ray. That means the beam couldn't pass through it, and it's usually what they call it a phlebolith. Of course, they can't say something normal. They got to call it a phlebolith. So you think they're smart, right? So phlebolith stands for. It's a part of a term It originally comes from Latin, it means vessels. And lith has to do with stone. So, like, the original printers were what they called lithographers, and they used stone and stuff. Anyway, um, so lithography. In fact, that was printing was called lithography, or anyway, printing books and stuff like that. So anyway, so phlebolith means that you have calcium in your blood vessels, and then you'll have a calcium here and they do calcium scores on your heart and stuff like that. Calcium's like the last guy trying to alkalinize it. Why is it trying to alkalinize it? Because you're living a life that's producing acid. So that based on that, they're going to do something, and they're going to find a name, and they're going to cut it off, and they're going to scare you, and all. You're fine now. What you should do, Jen, really, drlodi.com, make an appointment with me. Let me give you a plan to get out. But the plan is simple. Go to bed early. Eat only, right? If you want that to, by the way, did they do an ultrasound? Because usually when a mammogram is in doubt or equivocal or whatever, they will do an ultrasound to prove it. Right? So anyway. So did they do an ultrasound? They could have done a breast MRI, and a breast MRI doesn't. It's not ionizing radiation. So, but yeah. So you got, okay, Jen. So this is you get beautiful wake up call without getting, because you're right. Yeah, if they stick something in there, because see, if it is a chronically fermenting cell, chronically fermenting cells need to grow blood vessels. So what they do is they produce certain kinds of chemicals to help them grow their blood vessels, and but they also send out signals that if there's any other like micro island of this that has gotten out, escaped, the signals it sends out so that it cannot grow blood vessels. So it can't grow. It can't. So it's microscopic. No one, it's not, doesn't exist. Just like this one, is yours is only a microscope. But so the minute you poke it, the minute you take it out, what do? You release that, and now all these other guys start growing. All right. So you don't want to do that. So they want to do an excisional biopsy. They just got to cut. They got to cut. They got to cut. Why do they want to cut? Why do they want to cut? In addition to making some money, they will be able to get your term in their nomenclature, stick it on their sales algorithm, and then that's it. Start generating that, get that machine rolling. All right, so excisional biopsy means they're going to cut it all out, versus a biopsy where they just disturb it. Okay, so yes, it would. So it would spread it would potentially spread the stem cell. So what you're going to do, you're going to clean up your life really big time. 2 colonics a week for 8 weeks, and then twice a month, and you're going to do a 3-week green juice feast, drinking just green juice, not eating, and you're going to start melatonin, and you're going to go to bed early, and you're going to stop eating 4 hours before you go to sleep, and you're going to move around all day, and you're going to learn to turn your mind off through psychoneuroimmunology, also known as meditation, and you're going to try to clean up any relationships you have in your life that could be disturbing you, things like that, because that does happen, right? So anyway, I'm really sorry that we keep running out of time. Okay, last one, you guys. How to manage hormone estrogen after taking medications that put me in an early menopause. I want to stop taking all medications. After taking medications, how can I prepare the body to have a healthy pregnancy and child? Because you had breast with metastasis. Once fully healed. Once fully. Okay, so you're not healed yet. And you're taking. Nicole, you got to call me. So what I'm reading in here is that you're obviously they've got you on hormone blockers, and they might even have you on I don't know, something blocking you centrally like Lupron or something like that. So have you on, I don't know, one of the, you know, the, yeah. So what they call hormone therapy is not hormone therapy. It's anti-hormone therapy. It's against therapy, and it sets things out of balance. And it doesn't. You got to restore balance to have health. So can you imagine if your treatment is to make it more unbalanced, you'll never be healthy. You can't become healthy by getting unbalanced. It doesn't work. Right? It's just like you can't get healthy by drinking poison. It doesn't work that way. So, so you want to prepare your body. So you sounds like you're still young enough and you want to have children and all that sort of thing. So listen, Nicole, send me a message or something. We got, another one. Just you gotta be doing something. We gotta do something. We gotta do something for you because you can't let that happen. But yeah, I mean, you can't keep doing what you're doing. I'll guide you. Well, okay, last one here, Dr. Lodi. I'm trying to organize cryoablation in Japan, but doctor there asked me to do a biopsy of the sentinel nodes. I'm very much against it, but please tell me from your experience, is it necessary, and what are the consequences of it? I have an idea that they can freeze sentinel node together with a tumor during cryoablation, and there are literature about it. I would love to make an appointment, but you are booked the month ahead, and you have to make it next month. Okay. Oh, okay, good. Well, listen. Yeah, it's not. It's just that I don't have time to. Yeah, so I'm booked. It looks that I'm booked. Yeah, I am. I'm still. Yeah. Anyway, so, but here's the thing. This doctor in Japan. Again, they're all following the guy in front of them, and the guy leading the run is Rockefeller. They're all following. So, okay, cryoablation is good. You don't need a biopsy. What do you do biopsy for? But you can't ask the guy because they don't know, and they're not. Remember, they don't think. They only follow algorithms. So they're not going to be able to tell you. Well, they don't know what they're doing. They don't know. They act like they do. They even think they do. But of the sentinel node. So you're going to do yeah, freeze it too, but don't, freeze it and then freeze the main tumor, and don't do any biopsies. And if he won't do it, you go somewhere else. But in the meantime, change your life, change your life, change your life, change your life. Do it. This is the call. This is a tap on the shoulder by God. All we're saying is let's jump over into health. Let's start feeling fantastic when we wake up and when we go to sleep and stuff like that. Let's feel fantastic. Let's do this. So anyway, that's too bad. I'm gonna, you know what, Elma, send another email, okay, and see what we can do. Send an email. All right, but you got to find someone else. I don't know your situation enough. I can't really say what to do. But I'm just saying you don't need to do any biopsies. Okay. I'm still looking for a reason that anyone would ever have to do any biopsy. And I know I'm completely. Most doctors, someone out there is going to say, "Where did you get to? Can you prove you have an MD?" Yeah, I can do that. But I mean, there's so many I didn't answer, you guys. I don't know what to do about this, so I'm really sorry. But it's like, it's 7:13, which means over in there it's 10:13 in your side of the world. And anyway, you guys, my gosh, what are we gonna do? I can't answer them all. Just can't. You know what? All your questions deserve to be heard, and so maybe what we should do. Let me see how many we got left. Wow, not that many. So I'm going to start out with these next week that we didn't get to because we got to get to. All right, I'll do that. Okay, you guys. Sawadee Kap. Namaste. Namaskar. Aloha. Adios. And I see you all next week. Okay. Have a wonderful week. And watch out. They're on their way. They're on their way. Watch out. Where do we go here? There we go.